Hello everyone, I'm Dan Zadek, Senior Solutions Strategist and Architect with CyberArk. In this video, you'll see how Transmit Security Identity Verification works with CyberArk identity flows, thanks to our new streamlined integration. First, why Transmit Security? As a CyberArk partner, Transmit is our vendor of choice for customer identity management and fraud prevention. More importantly, Transmit Security Identity Verification proves the user is or is not who they claim to be, with the highest degree of accuracy. It examines 150 details in the user's photo, ID, and their selfie. Using Vision AI, it performs biometric matching of the ID, photo, and selfie, deep document inspection, including NFC chip and barcode analysis. It also verifies the format, fonts, colors of the identity. It also does selfie liveness check and deep fake detection. The results: better detection, machine learning algorithms learn on more data points for greater accuracy. Here's what the user's experience looks like. Using the phone, they snap a selfie and 2 photos of their ID front and back. Transmit Security's AI-driven service verifies the U.S. government's issued ID is real, valid, and unaltered. The user selfie is that of a live person. The selfie is a biometric match to the photo on their ID, and it's a fast and easy way to get verification. So today we're going to show a demonstration of this process. So to get started with the demo, here you can see a workforce login. This is an employee logging in to CyberArk Identity to verify their identity in order to get access to additional applications required as part of their job. As part of this process, we'll select within the identity portal the ID verification tab. Once selected, we will start an identity flow. At this point, we are connecting the user's account to an ID verification process. Here, we're being redirected to Transmit Identity Verification, and there's a QR code in which the user is presented with. The user will then take their phone, scan the QR code, and then be presented with different steps in order to verify their identity. In the first step, we're going to start by preparing our document. Here, we will scan the front side of the ID and validate that step, and then we will go through the back side of the ID. Once taken, a selfie is presented to the user, where a selfie can be taken, and Transmit Security's process is complete. Once that process is complete, we will then go through a verification process where Transmit sends information from their application over to CyberArk Identity, in which we store the ID verified information, whether they are allowed or denied, and additional information about the document. This can be anything from their gender, their country, expiration, the ID type, the ID number, date of birth, and additional features. Then the user will be able to refresh the page in which they are given access to a specific role. In that role, they are then verified as being part of that group and then given access to the application as needed. Now let's go over how it's done. Here we have a dynamic role. In this dynamic role, we have scripted a test. The test checks whether or not the user's profile has an ID verified field and whether or not that field contains the allow value. If the allow value is there, we return true. Here I can test a specific user and check and see that the trace output shows allow. So now we can validate that the user is allowed to this group and see whether or not they are in that group. We can also check whether or not there are assigned applications within that role will now give them access. Here we check, and the user has access to that role and the application within it. To go a little deeper, we look into that tab that the user selected. When the user selects this tab, they go directly to a page. That page is driven by identity flows. Here, we can see the identity flow and the different steps. The tab itself is just a link to the identity flow. Here we can actually look and see directly what that browser URL is. So we have taken this browser URL and placed it under that tab that the user selects. This browser URL is available to any user within the system, regardless whether they click on that tab or not. In this process, we take the user's information, say username or unique name, and we send it over to transmit identity verification process in order to pass in that user information and tie that next step to their account. So when the user completes the process, we know who they are, thereby tying their user within CyberArk identity to the user going through the verification process within the transmit ID verification process. Now, once the user has completed the ID verification process, they'll be redirected to a new flow. This flow that you see here will take them through a couple of steps by taking the information that is sent by transmit identity verification and insert it into their profile. As we saw earlier, we pulled in information that was given to us by the ID verification process, such as date of birth, ID number, ID type, etc. Here we can see how those fields are mapped to that profile. As we have custom fields within CyberArk Identity, we were able to map those fields by drag and drop and map those fields as the process continues. Lastly, we'll complete the verification, and here you can see we have a thank you for completing the verification process, at which the user can close that window. In this step, we can see how that information is actually placed within that profile by selecting the user and looking at the additional attributes provided by Transmit's identity verification flow. We can also see that the user has been assigned the role and assigned the application. So as you can see, we've made it easy to insert Transmit Security Identity Verification anywhere in CyberArk Identity Flows. In addition to employee onboarding, there are many other use cases like self-service account recovery, authorization and permissions. This could be included in the just-in-time access to sensitive applications or resources, and high-risk transactions or actions. For example, approving a large financial transfer or accessing critical company data. Thank you for attending our session. If you'd like more information, feel free to reach out to CyberArk or Transmit Security. Thank you.